What is up, denizens of the interwebs? It's Arthur Chats here, coming at you back with more videos now that the new year's kicked off. Took the holiday season off, I apologize, but I've got a new computer, so hopefully this process is gonna run as smooth as butter. Now, for those of you who have been living under a rock, we had one of the worst trailers to come out from Marvel in a very long time, absolutely bastardizing everyone's favorite Marvel character, Spider-Man. This is a new Spider-Man TV show that was supposed to be a prequel to that of the Tom Holland universe, but because Tom Holland probably knew that it was shit, he turned it down. And by God, does it look like shit. It looks so utterly atrocious. The art style is completely uninspired. Peter looks completely generic and looks idiotic. His default costume looks horrendous. The costume he gets from Norman Osborn looks terrible. Everything about it looks terrible, and that's not even getting into the actual characters at hand. We're not talking about what they did to friggin' Mary Jane turning into some generic goth Asian. The fact that Peter seems to be the only white guy at this entire school. But that's not even the most disgusting change they made. The worst one is what they did to the Osborns. First of all, turning Norman Osborn into a brotha instead of actually making him look at all interesting or anything like he does in the comics. And then second of all, what they did to Harry. Like, you mean to tell me this thing right here is Peter Parker's best friend, Harry Osborn? Nah, this isn't a Harry Osborn, this is a Harrietta, a goddamn blackwash and gender-swapped version of the character. At least I presume this is gender-swapped. I mean, with a chest that flat, it's hard to tell. But come on, how could you even think that making someone who's supposed to be a masculine competition for Peter Parker, how are you going to make him look like that? This trailer is all the reception you expect it to have, mostly ire, as everybody agrees this thing looks like trash. It looks horrendous, it looks horrible, it looks like the bottom of the barrel shit. It wouldn't even give this to a goddamn blind person. Not even Stevie Wonder could gain any kind of enjoyment out of a show that looks like this. And here we have it, Black Norman Osborn. And while I don't despise the way that his face shape looks, the fact that they gave him the world's worst dreads I've ever seen. And of course, there is in fact one last very important thing to message. The people who are brain dead claiming that how could you say that this is a race swap, because Norman Osborn has always been black. We was always Osborns, cuz. And their justification for this absolutely moronic claim, well, don't you know, in a couple of the comics, he had box braids. Yes, Norman Osborn has always had dreads, but here's one of the big problems. They're called Dutch braids. These aren't unique to black culture. People of many different cultures have worn these for a very long time. As things like cornrows, Dutch braids, and of course dreads have been used by every single racial group just about. And this isn't something that belongs to black people. So don't come out in here with this revisionist history trying to claim that this is a black man. Because that ain't what black looks like. That guy makes me look dark. That's how light-skinned Norman Osborn is. Now, what's more likely is he was probably Jewish, because many Jewish people have the same kind of fluffy, naturally Korean afro-like hair, because I know many Jewish people who have afro hair. So don't come in here with any of this revisionist history bullshit. And the fact that they still blackified him is something to be concerned about, and it is something that is so utterly stupid, idiotic, and pointless that it's causing all the right people to get angry. One of the best people I've seen get angry about this is my dear friend Kaida, who you might know from Saturday Night Hypnosis, who I've interacted with several times online, who had a wonderful response to this. He has an excellent video, and I heavily implore you to go and check it out. But he's not the only one who has had the appropriate reaction to this trailer. Now, I will say, what I love about his reactions, he says all the things that I, as a pasty guy, cannot say. And he says it with such class and excellence. You should really go check it out. It's going to be pinned in the comments. And something I didn't notice before is the absolute disrespect coming from this scene right here. What the fuck are they doing appropriating the #1 Spider-Man poster and replacing the random civilian he's saving with Harrietta Osborn and replacing Spider-Man with this god-awful costume that I'm supposed to believe Peter made himself? When it looks like this trash, I don't think he'd make that, because Peter's actually got taste and style, and you know, Aunt May would have properly taught him how to sew. And to prove a little bit of consistency, what the hell did they do to Aunt May? Why are they keeping up with this stupid, idiotic Marvel MCU version of Aunt May if this isn't the MCU universe? This is a completely different standalone universe, different story, there's nothing to do with Tom Holland's. So why is Aunt May still a hot 40-something? Though without modernity job, what am I saying by calling her hot? Getting Norman Osborn incorrect, I can get around with. Yeah, sure, he looks stupid, he looks goofy, and he looks like he's about to go and start preaching about the Nation of Islam, but that's beyond the point. What are they doing getting Aunt May incorrect. She should be a simple design. She's an elderly woman. She's a babushka. She's got the shawl on, and she's too busy selling shoelaces on the corner of the street to try to make rent. Give me the real Aunt May or no Aunt May at all. I also am not entirely sure if it was Flash Thompson, but it looks like they also race swapped Flash Thompson, so yeah, why don't we just race swap Flash Thompson and keep those crime statistics up to normal, huh? But one of the more shocking pushbacks against this horrendous trailer is coming from a very shocking individual, Beau DeMayo, the showrunner behind X-Men 97, which from what I heard was great, but since I never watched the old show, I never bothered to watch this one, and given the fact that I don't have a lot of time for TV shows, as my friend Darnell will very much yell at me for not watching, but apparently he was very respectful of the source material and kept it very light and very honest, which is something that's fantastic to hear. But apparently he's coming on, he slams Marvel for race-swapping white villains into black people after new Spider-Man cartoon trailer, with, of course, the number one being the Norman Osborn, who looks so unbelievably goofy. Beau DeMayo, the fired showrunner of Disney Plus's animated series X-Men 97, recently voiced strong criticism against Marvel Studios, particularly targeting the practice of race-swapping white villains to black people. And this is all coming on the heels of that horrendous trailer for Marvel's new Spider-Man animated series, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, where Norman Osborn, a traditionally white character, is race-swapped into a black man. And I just want to say, what neighborhood is he in? This looks nothing more than Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, let's be entirely honest. But of course, Osborn eventually goes on to become Spider-Man's arch nemesis, the Green Goblin, so a great person to race-swap as well, keeping up with those crime statistics as usual. Good job, Marvel. But DeMayo took to X to express his concerns. Here, let me rephrase. Hey, at Marvel Studios, please stop race-swapping white villains to black people. It reads funny. Kang, High Evolutionary, Norman Osborn, Electro, Mordo. This comment has ignited discussion among fans, with some interpreting DeMayo's stance as a broader opposition to race-swapping in media. This earned him praise from those who reject woke storytelling and forced diversity. However, his remarks specifically targeted the transformation of traditionally white antagonists into black characters. He's never addressed instances where white protagonist characters have been portrayed by actors of different races, like Zendaya's MJ or in the Tom Holland Spider-Man films. For example, he chastised X-Men 97 fans for straightwashing Morph's friendship with Wolverine, after there was a pushback against fan movement to ship the two characters together in his first season, which was, well, idiotic. Shipping, first of all, is completely stupid, pointless, and useless, as it is nothing more than a red flag when someone goes about doing it, and second of all, Wolverine is usually straighter than attack. And the notion of making Morph non-binary just because he's a shapeshifter is trite, tired, and boring, and it's been being done non-stop since She-Ra decided to do it with their shape-shifting character. But of course, DeMayo is in fact a gay man who's very aggressively proud of his homosexuality, which, as you know, I oppose the pride in it, as unfortunately him and I are attracted to similar groups. DeMayo has faced accusation of hypocrisy, notably regarding the character Sunspot in X-Men 97, who was depicted with lighter skin than his comic book counterpart. Now, I just wanted to be fair, check up, make sure to do some journalistic stuff, since this writer didn't include it, and of course, people on most of the time are not going to bother doing their actual due diligence. So, Sunspot, here we see him. This is what he looks like in X-Men 97. He's still fairly dark-skinned, but yeah, that's not a black guy. Whereas in the comics, well, you can't exactly get any darker than that. Here's another display from various appearances online. New Mutants, X-Force, don't know what that one is because it's low quality. Marvel Snap, X-Men, that looks like a white guy, that's just a black guy. That is, I think, a white guy, and that's clearly Hispanic. So I understand why there would be some. Here's another display of him, which seems a bit more fair, and then this is a similar display coming from 97. It is very clear that they're different races because, well, the hairstyle really gives it away. And the nose does not help. Now, it also seems like loosely unfair criticism to complain about the skin tone, because it seems that his skin gets darker as he uses his powers, as can be seen on his wrist here, but that's an assumption because I'm not too familiar with this character. But then again, casting someone who's actually this shade of black is incredibly hard. There are not that many people who are that dark-skinned. Though if you ever see one in real life, you understand it's kind of a weird, ethereal look about them when you do, given how utterly dark they are. It's very interesting. There's one model, though I don't remember her name, who has this condition that leads her to being this dark, and she is gorgeous. But there's some interesting response to this claims of whitewashing or colorism being levied against DeMayo, as he claims that these were directed by Marvel, and he had no chance to do anything about it, and he opposed it when Marvel told him to do it. According to him, DeMayo had said in reference to the perceived inconsistency, this was a Marvel directive. Crew members and I brought up this Afro heritage multiple times. They wanted Latino representation on the team since Storm and Bishop were already black. Which is even more interesting because on top of being a black man, DeMeo is also half Brazilian, which means he qualifies as a Latino. Which gives credence to people saying that this is probably a bit of more of an anti-woke, anti-race swapping stance, because this means that he was more willing to preserve Sunspot's Afro heritage, despite the fact they would ignore Bo DeMeo's Latino heritage, when instead, if they really wanted to, they should have picked an actual Latino X-Men, or they should have gone and created a new character, which you could easily have done. But I'm glad to see they're still attacking their favorite group of person because there's still too much representation. There's no such thing as too much or too little. It's all about what's natural and who's already there. Of course, it is interesting to see DeMeo continue to go against Disney, though it makes sense because they fired him under very questionable causes. First saying it was an amicable firing, and then backtracking and saying that it was because of the horrendous thing that he did, and we don't really know what it was. It could be his personal OnlyFans where he posts news of himself. It could have been claims that there were things that he was doing with minors or young people, including people as young as 18, who even though they're legal, it was still creepy and he was creating an unsafe environment on set, to a million other things, including the fact that people claimed he was difficult to work with on The Witcher by fighting against lore changes, and then claiming he's difficult to work with on X-Men because he refused lore changes, just like that Sunspot one. If that's true, that he fought back against the race swapping of Sunspot, I could see why they got rid of him, because he's not willing to tote the line. We still don't have a clear answer as to why he was fired, but according to Disney, Mr. DeMeo was terminated in March 2024 following an internal investigation. Given the egregious nature of the findings, we severed ties with him immediately and he has no further affiliation with Marvel. But with the fact we don't know what happened, clearly it can't be too illegal, otherwise they would have told us. I really do think it was probably just that he was too dedicated to the lore. So this all really does beg the question, do I think that Bo DeMeo is opposing this because he has an issue with black characters being used to represent white villains, or do I think that it's that he opposes black characters being turned into villains? Those are two very different stances, but I think they're brothers of one another, and I think if he can get him to understand one side, we can eventually push him to understanding the rest. But to the way it reads to me, he mostly opposes the nature of race swapping entirely, because he's refusing to acknowledge one of his own races by preserving half of it. By trying to keep that guy African descendant, he's ignoring the Latino part. So I don't think it's about him being seen on TV, because he doesn't need his Latino side seen. Though he might need his representation on the gay side, which I also think is idiotic to force that. We don't know if he's trying to force it or not. But whether or not he actually supports our side, the anti-woke, keeping everyone what they're supposed to be and making new characters instead of swapping, it's impossible to say. But either way, he is still on our side because he opposes these race swaps too. And I oppose all of them. The better actor argument no longer exists. It used to. I used to fully believe it, but I've been proven wrong too many times by it, so I will no longer accept that as an actual justification as to whether or not a race swap is justified. From this point on, no race swap is ever justified. And here's one thing I saw someone say, well, of course they had to make Harry black. They hired a black guy to voice him. That's irrelevant. He's an actor. He should be able to play anyone he's hired to play. If he has to play a white guy, so be it. You don't have to match the animation to the face, because especially with this one, it is clear they're not doing facial scans, because otherwise the animation wouldn't look so goddamn awful. But that's pretty much all I've got. It's really awesome to see someone as highbrow as Bo DeMeo coming out and saying the exact same things we're saying. It's showing that there is more credence and more validity to our stance, now that people within the industry are actually coming out and agreeing with us in higher numbers. We are the majority. We are the silent majority, and one day we will decide to speak up on louder and louder numbers until they have no choice to listen or go bankrupt. Stop the race swaps. If you want a black character, make an original, well-written black character, and we will celebrate it just as we've been celebrating Isom, who is, in fact, an original black character. Written by an original black man. And please, check out that video from my friend Kaida, and I will see you guys on the next one.